All right, let's go over our chapter 4 warm up, sampling methods and bias. So we've kind of been working on that. Let's finish it up here. All right. So I gave you different scenarios and you were supposed to see what the sampling method was and the type of bias if there was any. So this first one where the local TV station asked people to dial in or call in, that means people had to take action to put themselves into the sample. So only those people who really care strongly about the subject will make an effort to call in. That's voluntary response sampling. And inevitably, always, what comes from that is voluntary response bias, because only those with strong opinions will choose to voice them. All right, next. So this one's interesting, okay? Because it sounds like they are attempting to do a good job at the elementary schools. There are 20 elementary schools, okay? And so they're wanting to get the opinions from each of the elementary schools. So it sounds like they are stratifying. I like that, okay? And random, but the problem is that there's a PTA meeting. And so they're saying, oh, okay, well, we have this PTA meeting going on and we've got these parents. Let's ask them. Okay. And so that would mean that it's convenience sampling because it was convenient to ask the parents at the meeting. So what happens is PTA parents are those parents like all parents in the district. Especially when it comes about opinions about this testing. I think that's what we're talking about on this one is the opinion about, oh yeah, the test passing to go on to the next grade level. And so PTA parents are not necessarily like all parents. They're the ones that have the time to be involved, to get into the system. And, maybe they're the ones who are saying, heck no, if the kids don't know what they're doing, they need to stay where they are until they do. Okay, so you're going to get an unrepresentative sample. So that's undercoverage bias. All right, now, frequently on this problem, I get people asking me, why is this not considered, why is this not considered voluntary response sampling? Because the parents are wanting to voice their opinion. And so the difference is, if the parents knew ahead of time, if it had been announced that, and it said in the newspaper, hey, everybody, we're going to hold a PTA meeting and we are going to discuss your opinion. We're going to see what you think about the students having to pass a test to go on to the next grade level. Okay. So if people knew ahead of time that that's what the topic of the meeting was, and they were like, whoa, I feel really strongly about that. So I want to go to that meeting so that I can voice my opinion on that. Then that would be voluntary response bias. That's not what's happening here. They had the PTA meeting, maybe a monthly meeting that was already happening. They were probably discussing other things, and they said, oh, by the way, let's ask their opinion of this. Okay, so parents didn't actively and purposefully put themselves into the sample because they were passionate about the topic. Okay, next. Here, randomly select one class at each elementary school. Okay, so I like this one. I did give you a hint that this was a multi-stage sampling, and I don't think I put that on a quiz of where you're going to have to deal with the multi-stage. But by doing one class from each elementary school, okay, so that's stratifying by elementary and getting some of you and some of you and some of all of you. Stratify, homogeneous by elementary school. Okay. All right. But then also so then once you're at an elementary school, then they think each class is a cluster. So they're going to say, oh, okay, we're going to randomly select one class and I'm going to sample all of you. Hey, cluster, you're a group. I will sample all of you. Hey, cluster. So that's what happened. The elementary schools were stratified, but then they got a cluster and sampled all of it from that class. Okay. So there's kind of how to keep that straight. They did not, they did, it was multi-stage. I actually kind of like that method. I think that's a pretty good method. They might want to maybe they want to pick one from each grade level, or I don't know if they're just going to rely on randomness to get a good sample of K through 5. But they also want to make sure when the researchers go out there or ask the parents that they're not going to do interviewing biases to have response bias. Okay, and here we go, selecting every 40th parent. So they take the whole entire district's enrollment records. Okay, now I'm hoping this is elementary enrollment records. I just noticed that. I wonder if that's a typo that I didn't put elementary. So I'm going to go with the fact that this was the district's enrollment records of elementary. I think that's what was intended, and I might ought to go retype that. And they select every 40th parent. Okay, so hopefully they started at a random spot, pick every 40th. That's systematic. Okay, got a system in place, systematic every 40th. Now they interview. Okay, so I think what you should also get in your mind is anytime they're talking about interviewing, then that's a red flag that you need to make sure that you're not like that guy in the trench coat video with the interviewing techniques. So the mention of interviewing means you need to just like be careful and make sure that the interviewer is trained properly so as to avoid the possible response biases of the question wording and the lack of privacy and those kinds of things. All right. So there is your sampling methods and bias warm-up key.